Welcome to the DNA Talks podcast, where we take on the mission of unlocking the code of your genetics. This season is all about you, upgrading your health, not just on the surface, but down to the root cause. Join us as your clinicians at the DNA company investigate your DNA and beyond. The intention of this podcast is to enhance your lifestyle by changing what is in your control. This does not substitute the medical advice given by your personal doctor, therapist, and other healthcare professionals. All right, everyone. Big treat for you today. We are getting a behind the scenes peek that we normally don't get. And what do I mean by that is in the work that we do with the world, people come to us and seek help for many different issues. And in the podcast or what we put out there in terms of education, a lot of information, usually from the perspective of the patient. Not often that we get to hear from the actual practitioners that are on the front lines dealing with this stuff. And not often do we get to hear from a practitioner who was inspired to go down this path because of their own health journey, which is so cool. And when you hear most great functional medicine type stories, somebody who's helped somebody who's hyper focused and found a way, it usually starts from their own story. It's usually because they were so failed and disappointed, myself included, by the way, that they had to go figure it out. And once they figured it out, it was so powerful and so impactful that they had to tell the world. And all of a sudden, they became a master healer because what they do is truly what's needed. And so we have with us here today, who I'd like to welcome, Dr. Stephanie. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So Dr. Stephanie is a functional genomics practitioner. She understands, and when we get into her background, I'll blow you away in terms of everything else she knows. This is just the most recent other criteria that she's added to her name, or designation, I should say. And so she has this unique perspective where she understands the body from a genomic perspective, but she also has the allopathic and holistic background too, because she was doing that. Before we get into all of how you understand and see the body, tell us, you, Dr. Stephanie, where you came from and how you got to where you're at, because that, I think, is the most interesting part of what we have to talk about today.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'm just really excited to be here. And I've had some great experiences with a lot of the audience, but I look forward to getting to meet more of them. So I'm a Midwest farmer's daughter and grew up in small rural towns. My father was a milling engineer, and a miller takes grain and turns it into wheat or flour or other grain products. Well, I'm going to give you kind of the inside story and then back up. I'm a celiac. In fact, our whole family are celiacs. So we were around wheat products day in and day out, from the field to processing them. My dad would come home covered in wheat flour and always had health issues. I always had health issues. I was this skinny little runt kid, couldn't get, weight on me, had allergies, my eyes would swell shut, my lungs would swell shut. No one could figure out. All the pediatricians that saw me said she was just born with a weak immune system. So I was on tons of antibiotics, tons of cough medicines, tons of asthma medicines, and I never healed. Fast forward to 21, I end up with cancer. Now, not a lot of people know what to do at 21 with cancer, but fortunately, I had been a stellar student. I was actually accepted into pharmacy school early. I was in the middle of my doctorate degree in pharmacy. And when I had this cancer, they wanted to make me girl in the plastic bubble. They wanted to wipe out my immune system, and they wanted to restart, kind of like Control-Alt-Delete on your computer.
Yeah.
What would happen to a celiac that you wipe out their immune system? Yeah. And what would happen in 3 months in a hospital getting fed mac and cheese, grilled cheese, gravy with flour in it, pudding, Jello? None of those foods were nutrient rich or dense. None of those foods would have sustained or allowed me to regrow my immune system. I would have died. I would have taken on $1 million worth of medical debt and then died. And the only reason, Scotch-Irish, the only reason I didn't do it was because I wasn't willing to bankrupt myself or bankrupt my folks. I figured $1 million worth of medical debt, I would never get out from under it. So fortunately, I had a young resident who was conspiratorial, East Indian. His grandmother was an Ayurvedic practitioner. Ayurvedic medicine is the folk medicine of India. And he whispers to me, "You don't need all these drugs. You need to change your diet." And I said, "Well, how do I do that?" Because I was raised very Western medicine. And he goes, "I don't know. Find some little nutritionist and she'll figure it out." Well, all I remember was this. So I'm like, okay. So I did exactly what I was told. I found a little nutritionist. She was 4'11". She was 82. She kicked my butt and saved my life because she put me on a severely restricted diet. See, the kind of celiac I am was a silent celiac. I don't have the GI upset. I don't have the diarrhea. I don't have all the gas. So I had autoimmunity. I had stuffy noses and asthma and failure to thrive. But nobody recognized my failure to thrive as celiacs. So fast forward, I did 2 years of a severely restricted diet. Basically, breakfast was eggs and spinach, lunch was chicken and lettuce, dinner was beef and broccoli. There were no sauces, there were no fruit, there were no condiments, it was lean and clean. I took 143 pills a day. I took about 40 pills at every meal and at bedtime. Now, most people alone wouldn't do that. Fortunately, we don't have to do that anymore. There are other ways that we can work around this. But none of my tests showed anything wrong with me. So one of the things that I value about what we get to do now and understanding DNA and understanding the advancements in integrative medicine and functional genomics is we have a lot of the answers that I didn't have. No one could help me until my little nutritionist, Sal. And even Sal, at the end of my 2 years, everything healed. My skin rashes healed, my asthma healed, my acne healed, everything healed. I put on weight, I got nice curves. But at the end of that, she pronounced me healed, and I thought that meant I was done. So I went back to my old diet. See, I called myself a vegetarian. But I wasn't a vegetarian. I was a dairyitarian, a breaditarian, a sugaritarian, a dessertitarian. So sugar doesn't like my body. I have a very high yeast count because of all the antibiotics. Gluten, I can't have. 60% of all celiacs are also dairy intolerant. I can't have dairy. So I was eating all the things that caused my inflammation and thus caused my cancer. Because what is cancer? It's out of control inflammation. Within 1 month, I came back to Sal, and I said, "What is wrong with me?" You said I was well. And she said, "What did you do? Where did all this mucus come from?" And I said, "Well, I just went back to my lifestyle." And she said, No. The lifestyle I gave you was what will keep you healthy. This will make you sick. So I had to make a big decision right then and there. And it was I willing to go on this journey of eating clean, but not feeling deprived? Because let's face it, how many of our clients, when we tell them you've got to change your fats or change your, they feel deprived. What do you mean I can't eat gluten? What do you mean I can't have bread? Well, there's lots of things we can do now. And fast forward, a good 25 years, it's easier than ever to have specific diets. But now we have the technology through the DNA to look inside and go, what works for you and what doesn't? What is the blueprint that your body's asking for that your doctor doesn't know? Or that your mom hasn't been able to tell you? Well, I know dad's always had stomach issues. That's our weak spot. Well, maybe it's not. See, one of the neat things that I get to describe to a lot of our clients is when we look inside, DNA is like a house. And if you live in a tract with a lot of the same house, they may look similar from the outside, but you don't know inside. Are they country or are they modern? Are they dirty or are they clean? Did you add something special? Did you add granite or did you leave the formica? The DNA is the shell. What we do with it, our functional genomics, turning that DNA up or down or building a bridge from room to room. Maybe a bridge is broken. My bridge is broken. I have MTHFR.
Mm.
Well, I know how to build the bridge now where I didn't before. I had high levels of vitamin B, but I couldn't utilize them. Now I know how to
Mhm.
utilize them and work around. So it's really great to turn something that was so dramatic. Some people say, gosh, how horrible. That could be the worst thing. And I said, no, it was actually the best thing because it gave me a purpose and I've been able to utilize not only heal myself, but help heal others.
Yeah, this story and what you went through should be the sort of brochure that's given to every parent that has a new child saying, "Here's how to maintain health." Right? Because that's what it is that we believe that disease happens and then you fix it, and then it's gone. Disease happens because we cause it, because we're inflamed, and you combine that with some kind of some hardware that's failing also, and that's the disease that expresses first. For different people, it's different symptoms, but the same root cause. For you, you happen to not tolerate celiac well. Your MTHFR was off, so you didn't process folic acid so well, which is all your enriched flours that were full of folic acid were making you sick. This thing that was supposed to be food was actually poison for you. So, by hearing this story, people can truly understand what chronic disease is. Doesn't matter what chronic disease, the thing that you develop and cause is removed and resolved not by turning a switch off and fixing it, by changing your habits that caused it to begin with. And if there's not going to be new habit formation, there's not going to be, first of all, identifying what are the habits, which, like you said, it's so easy to do now with genetics. We can personalize. But even like you did, you went and met with someone who understood human biology well and what got you to where you are. Now all of a sudden you can prevent, reverse, be the best version of yourself. Like, look at you now, this flourishing professional who has helped thousands of people, who speaks, who writes, that could have been literally needing full-time support, chronically ill, not able to work, the same exact human being walking on the same planet with a different set of choices, having an entirely different outcome. And like you said, it was a bit of a problem with the silver lining that led you to a blessing to spend the rest of your life healthy. So those 40 pills you were taking per meal, what were they? What were the 40 pills?
Well, instead of the powerful combinations we have now, whether a methyl optimizer or a sleep support that has 4 or 5 things in it, she gave me everything individual. So I
Mm,
had things to detox, Silymarin and NAC. I had I had each B vitamin was separate. I had Paudiarco to get rid of my yeast. I had amino acids and branch chain amino acids. So everything she gave me was individual rather than the powerful. Again, we didn't have back then those powerful combinations of things that people go, oh, these are the right ratios and these are the right doses.
mhm,
And so everything had to be individual. So it literally, I had bottles. And of course,
mm.
it hurts me. And I get a little feisty when I hear people say, oh, vitamins, they just give you expensive pee.
Yeah.
You know, first of all, my family were farmers. So the nutrient density of food now is not the nutrient density that it was back when I was growing up.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Our family, we did use pesticides and herbicides and things, but it wasn't the glyphosate that's out there that is so prevalent and
Mm.
causing so much inflammation. Whether someone's a celiac or not, they're oftentimes experiencing celiac symptoms because of the glyphosate in the products that they're eating. So to grow a garden that we grew, that we ate, where a tomato tasted like a tomato,
Yeah.
not like a mealy, you know,
Red
cardboardy, no
red
flavor.
styrofoam.
So we had nutrient dense food, and I'm a major proponent of nutrient dense food, including organ meats. Now I know that's going to make some people cringe. They're going to be, what do you mean liver and heart? But there are vital nutrients that our body needs that, if you don't want to eat liver, okay, you don't have to eat liver. We have other ways we can get it into you. But you've got to understand food is the only fuel that your body recognizes. So I want to ask you, so Kasha, what is the fanciest, most wonderful car you can think of? That if you could drive anything, that's just the car you want to drive.
So this is embarrassing, but it's a Pagani.
Okay, so there you go,
Yeah.
a Bugatti.
And only because my kid talks about it all the time.
Okay, so a Bugatti, if I remember right, is like $1 million. That's a big car.
More like 4 million.
Okay, 4 million. There you go. Would you put the crappiest fuel in your Bugatti?
Yeah, exactly.
No. Would you have the crappiest mechanic work on your Bugatti? Would you leave it outside and park it on the street so anybody could touch it and feel it and bang it? No. You would take such good care of it, and yet it's just a car. It's replaceable. And yet, do we, for our body, give it the fuel, the best fuel we can do? Do we give it the best mechanic? Whether it means we stretch, whether it means we work out, whether it means we go for a walk. Are we doing the things? Are we breathing deeply? Most people breathe so shallow. I call them the Asian nation. We need to have respiration, urination, defecation. All the Asians are our detox messages, but people aren't breathing deep. They're not sweating, perspiration. They're having bowel problems and they don't release toxins. We got to get all this stuff going. Those are the mechanics that your body naturally does. What we put into our brain is how our body responds with neuropeptides. Are we feeding it good stuff or are we feeding it horror movies and scary stuff? So we've got to look at all the impulses and the inputs that we put in order to get healthy and stay healthy.
And I know one area, a particular focus for you is autoimmunity.
It is.
And you helped a lot of people there. And
Yeah.
this is this word that, I remember when we started this journey of building the DNA company, autoimmunity was new. Like I didn't know, I had never heard the term before. And now it's like, it's as common as as the common cold, let's say, like everybody has an autoimmune condition now. And so we haven't changed. People haven't changed. The inputs maybe have changed.
Yes.
So with this proliferation, this epidemic of autoimmunity, where do you start with people? Like, what does that process look like? Because I know you've done such a good job healing people, and it's a place where people get stuck. Where like, I have an autoimmune condition, I live like this, it's bad, and it's going to be bad. Versus, I go see Dr. Stephanie, and I had an autoimmune condition, but she helped me get rid of it. So, what does that process look like?
Well, so when you're doing it with the DNA company, the beautiful thing is we get that snapshot inside. Oh, you have problems digesting dairy. Oh, you have problems digesting gluten. Oh, you don't process monosaturated fats. I tried to do keto for myself at one point when I was going through perimenopause. And I thought, this is okay. I'll just burn all that stuff off. I got fatter on keto. How many of you can relate to this? You're like, what's going on? Well, my body does better with polyunsaturated fats, not monosaturated fats. So I had to shift some of that. Autoimmunity, the best way I can describe it is if you've ever seen one of the old sci-fi movies and they're on a big mothership and the red lights start flashing and it goes self-destruct 30 minutes, self-destruct 10 minutes. Well, they generally save themselves in about 1 to 2 minutes. So, I've learned that this is what Hollywood does. But we as people have to realize our body's going self-destruct. I'm going to wear out. Auto means self. Immunity means my self is breaking down. All my barriers are breaking down. So for celiacs, in case someone doesn't know it, it means your intestine, the villi. Okay, so these are the little, looks like a shag carpet. When gluten touches them, they start melting. And it goes from a shag carpeting to like the burger. And then food just slips through and we become malabsorbed So I'm not getting my nutrients. And then the body says, I have no nutrients, like I've run out of gas and I die. So with autoimmunity, we go in and we identify what are the major inflammatory things in your environment. They tend to be toxins, they tend to be foods, they tend to be chemicals. And some of them are historical. Maybe somebody worked in a factory and they have a heavy metal accumulation, or maybe you think these things are not in our environment anymore. When my children were growing up, we had one of my daughter's best friends who would go into the playground and go to the side of the school and pick cement off and eat the cement, eat the paint. Well, she had a condition called pica, and pica was because she was so minerally deficient. It manifested as anxiety, it manifested as kind of some depression, but she was trying to, the paint tasted sweet to her because she was so minerally deficient. So we don't realize that a lot of our behaviors are innately driven to try and heal those nutrient deficiencies. So we go in, I have every person that I deal with give me a 4 to 7 day diet history. And invariably, I say, good, bad, or ugly, I don't care. There's no judgment. That's the biggest thing I want people to know is we're not here to say, these are all the things you're doing wrong. What I do is say, I was doing everything wrong. But fortunately, I had somebody who had the grace to say, why don't you try and see if the results are different? So I might say, they may say, I have no sugar in my diet. Okay, great. You have no sugar. But when we look at it, well, you start the day with a flavored creamer that has artificial sweeteners and extra sodium caseinate. You then add sugar to it because it's not sweet enough. You then have waffles or bagels for breakfast. A starch is nothing but a string of sugars that are all clumped together, so it breaks down as sugar. Then for lunch, you're having a burrito with potatoes. So it's a breakfast burrito that has potatoes and cheese. So there's no meat in there. You don't have to have meat, but you do have to have certain proteins. And then for dinner, you have pizza. Well, all I heard was sugar because it was starch, 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 and starch. And they can't figure out why the rosacea is up or why they can't breathe with their asthma or why their bowels aren't getting better. So it's like, could you consider shifting a few things? And we do just one or two at a time because I want them to drive the bus. Speaking of driving the bus, I had a man who drove for a major beverage company. So he drove for Coca-Cola. He drank 16 Coca-Colas a day. I'm like, oh my God. He had osteoporosis. He had dental problems. He had massive headaches. And he felt like crud. And I said, wow, okay, any chance we can cut those down? And he goes, I don't think so. And I said, okay. I said, so I looked at all the Coca-Cola products. Well, they also own Dasani, which is their bottled water. I said, I'll tell you what, you can drink as many Cokes as you want, but you have to drink a bottle of Dasani water in between each Coke. He says, I could do that because he got to drink as much as he wanted for free. So 2 weeks later, he comes back. He went from 16 Cokes to 8 Cokes. Now, he was on 5 medicines for pain, anxiety, headaches, all this kind of stuff. In 2 weeks, he went from 16 to 8 by himself. I didn't drive the bus. He drove the bus, literally, because he was a driver for the bottling company. And he went, I feel so much better. I have so much more energy. I'm able to sleep at night. My headaches are down. I said, could you drink 2 bottles of water? He goes, I'm going to have to pee a lot. I said, you stop and go into stores all the time. You can pee. He goes, all right, fine. So 2 weeks later, he comes back. He's down to 4 Cokes a day. Within a month, he had cut it from 16 to 4. Within 2 months, he was down to a single Coke a day. And it's how he started his morning. Most of us start with a cup of coffee. He started with Coke. And I said, dude, you got to lose the Coke. And he said, I can't. And I said,
Yeah.
why? Why? You feel so much better. You're off almost all your medicines. And I get choked up with this. And he said, because I worked for him for 30 years. I
Yeah.
came here as an immigrant. I'm now a citizen. They've put my 4 kids through college. I have 2 doctors, I have a lawyer, and I have a nurse. I am so
Yes.
grateful. I will live, breathe, and die, and I feel disloyal
Mm.
to not having that. And I said, I can live with that. So,
Yeah.
what did he do? He changed his health. Did he
Yeah.
eventually cut down that he didn't have to have the whole Coke, but he had to have a couple sips? He did because he felt so much better. But he drove the bus. He just needed an awareness that there was another way, and he needed small steps so
Mm.
that he could get there. My job is not to radically change your life and with you. My job is to give you awareness. And fortunately, the people who come to the DNA company, they are so aware. They are just fighting for give me an answer, give me a tool, I'll run with
Yeah.
it. They're so dedicated. So it makes them a pleasure to work with because they're like, you tell me, let's do it. Unfortunately, a lot of them have been through a lot of practitioners that have a lot of good information, but maybe they didn't get to see inside like we get to see inside with the DNA. And we just have that one more piece of information that helps them turn the door.
So you have this cool perspective because you were on the ground with general population, healing people that are stuck, right? My perspective is a little nuanced because, the work that I've done so far is more, say, biohacking community, health and wellness community, people that are already doing well that want to do better. So why I'm bringing this up is the question of the Coke. A lot of people say, well, that's obvious. But that being said, the average American, like in your clinic, right? What is the profile of people that fit in this bucket that they don't even know about the Coke versus people that are doing well and are stuck for some reason? They already understand their supplements because again, you get a bit jaded because I come from a space where people are already educated trying in this biohacking type space. But is that what America looks like, or is it more so like this guy that didn't even know he should stop the Coke?
Well, I can tell you, I had my clinic for over 25 years, and most of my clinic I ran was out in the LA area. So I had movie stars and rock stars and NBA players and CEOs of major corporations, but and they were fun. I've moved back to middle America now to help take care of my folks. But the things that I found was the most rewarding was when somebody had been through 2 or 3 or 5 PCPs or functional medical practitioners and gone, they still don't get it. And what
Yes.
I'll tell you is, I have a young gal who was told she'd never get pregnant. And so we started cleaning up her diet. We changed some environmental things she had. A lot of people also don't realize that scars create disruption. And so
Yes.
we changed some EMF stuff and we did some scar therapy, which is called prolotherapy. It was 6 months later, she had her first baby. We've now had
Wow.
12 babies with people who were told they would never get pregnant and they should just
Right.
stop trying. So whether it's that or whether it is somebody who came and they've had rashes their whole life or they've had plaque psoriasis and they would be on dairy and be off dairy and be on dairy and be off dairy. And did they have rheumatoid arthritis? Did they not have a rheumatoid arthritis? All of their lab work was normal. Well, normal lab work means nothing to me because we want optimal.
Yeah.
And so when we go to an optimal range, why does a 90-pound white female get the same lab work that a
Yeah.
300-pound African American man gets? Why are the ranges the same? They're not. So we go for optimal ranges for specific people. And then within that, we find where things are optimum. One of my neighbors the other day, she has a horse. We live out in the farm and some acreage and stuff. And she had been talking about how she was having carpal tunnel syndrome and she couldn't take care of the horse. So I went over to help with the horse and get some hay out and different things. And I said, well, what supplements are you taking? Well, she was talking about her osteoporosis. And I said, well, osteoporosis is autoimmune. She goes, what? She goes, I just thought it was low calcium. I said, no, it's actually autoimmunity. Your bones have more osteoclast, which is breakdown, than osteoblast, which is buildup. So you're in that self-destruct again. So we talked about restructuring her diet, got her on 3 or 4 supplements. We haven't even done her DNA yet, but there were just some things that I could see in her lifestyle and stuff. She called me crying in 4 days. Now, she's a former nurse, but was forced to retire because she was having so much inflammation and so much breakdown. And she said, how is it that I stopped the 8 supplements I was taking and I'm taking the 3 that you recommended, and I feel like a new person? Well, it's about taking the right things in the right order with the right diet. And it's just, you know, God is good. God is good when you are given a challenge, you overcome the challenge, and then your purpose is to help others overcome theirs. Am I perfect? Far from it. Can I help everybody? Boy, I try. but some you don't. And sometimes there's just not things you can see. But we have more wins than we have losses. And I would say the general public that finds us is so hungry to heal that they're willing to go over, under, through, around, and find a way. Does the general public want us? No, because they're not willing to take self-responsibility for either what they put in their mouth or how they live. So I have a doctorate degree in pharmacy. I have a board certification in clinical nutrition. I have 5. I was a naturopath before they became naturopathic doctors, so I'm considered a naturopathic practitioner. I'm a functional genomics specialist. I finally took all the certificates off the wall because they just got embarrassing. But what I have is I have an ability to really listen and to ask nuanced details. I say, what kind of shampoo do you use? Well, I use Head and Shoulders. Well, for somebody who does detox, guess what? Head and Shoulders is very toxic for them. So I have an ability to ask specific brands or foods, and then find a way that maybe they can make a small tweak. I just want you to make one step forward so that you can see it makes a difference, and then you're willing to take 2. And sometimes we do the cha-cha. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But as long as we're progressing, we keep moving. As long as we're moving forward, they have another aha where they start driving their own bus to healing.
What's really cool about this, just like the story of the driver, is how quickly the healing happened. When you talked about the osteoporosis patient, you think, imagine like what most people believe osteoporosis is. Like, I've lost bone density. Lost, like the word meaning it's gone, right? And now I have to live like this. And you want me to fix my bone? What does that look like? 2 years? Right? Versus this is a couple weeks into it and the lady's calling you crying, because the body is designed to heal. It's resilient. It will heal. You all the mechanisms to repair and regenerate are built in. We walk around with them. But if you're not in a heal state, if you're in an autoimmune state, if you're in a fight or flight state, healing mechanisms aren't available. So the beauty of what you've been doing with these people is you've been getting them out of that state. The body, first of all, the emergency is your body's fighting itself. Let's turn that off.
Yeah.
How are you going to fix
Or at
something when
least
the body?
turn it down. Or at least turn it down. Yeah.
At least turn it down. Yeah. And now all of a sudden, with that fire put out to some degree, the other mechanisms have the ability to win. Right? Sort of this energy equation of where's the energy of your body going? Fighting this or improving this? And like you said, you don't even have to get rid of it. Just tone it down, and all of a sudden, these mechanisms just kick in. The body wants to heal. It wants to fix things. It wants to regenerate. It wants to deploy stem cells, and it wants to start doing these things. So now, when it comes to, you brought up this woman, and we typically find that in all of what I've seen happening in clinic, the people that are most stuck, let's say, are women that have some underlying hormone dysregulation or issue, right? And just like the what's being told to the autoimmune community, like you have it, right? It's something it's a disease that you have that we have to mask. Same thing with women is like you just it's hormones. You're a woman. Deal with it. So where how much leeway is there to go from menopause sucks, the menstrual cycle sucks, PMS is bad to like, no, you can actually take control and have a very different menopause than your mom and grandma.
There's a ton of room. So I'll tell you that I had osteopenia, and I was like, oh, no, 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 no. Okay, I get that I'm autoimmune. I get that I'm, postmenopausal. No flipping way, not happening. It took me 18 months and I reversed that. And of course, my traditional physician, my PCP, was like, whoa, I don't see that happening. So I was starting to have the hot flashes. I was starting to have the weight gain. I swore I would not be the 50-year-old woman that went from this sculpted body to all of a sudden the thick waist and the puff. And I was like, because that's just not me. I've always been 5 pounds, maybe more than I graduated from high school. Part of it is because I was sick. But then when I healed, I was able to maintain because I have a pretty clean diet. I was going to say a very clean diet, but pretty clean. So, and that's one of the nice things is if you'll do this 90% of the time or 95% of the time, you do have cheats. And it's fun to cheat. I don't cheat on gluten, but I might cheat on sweets. So last night it was snowing here and I made chocolate chip cookies. Well, I don't have 15 of them. I have one, or maybe I have two, but it satisfies that. So when I became that 50-year-old plus woman, because I'm 60 now, and I put on first the 5 pounds, then the 10 pounds, then I'm up 18 pounds, and I'm like, my stuff doesn't fit anymore. This isn't working for me. Just because I was uncomfortable, I didn't want to spend the money on the new clothes. I did get myself some fat pants because it just hurt to have the other ones on. But I'm like, okay, time to dig back in. And I think that's what we all do. We maybe get to a low point and then we get ourselves back up and we're like, I'm cruising so good, I can start cheating a little, cheating a little. All of a sudden we hit a bottom again. Okay. So I'm like everybody else, good and low, good and low, good and low. Well, I got to the point where I was 18 pounds up and having to get a new size and wasn't having it. I'm 5'9". I'd always worn a size 6. I'm pushing needing a 10. And a 10 is not huge, but for me it was big and it was uncomfortable. And I didn't like how I looked. And of course, then all the self beating up and everything. So I started looking into hormones. I tried some bioidenticals. Yeah, worked, didn't work. But just like anything, there's good supplements and bad supplements. There's good bioidenticals and there's poor bioidenticals. There's whether you're talking pellets or creams or topicals or injectables, orals, there's good and bad in all of them. I had to find what worked for me. Well, I'm happy to tell you, I am back down to my fighting weight. I am back down to a loose size 6. My skin is tighter. I don't have the wrinkles. I was starting to see the wrinkles. I was starting to see the discoloration. I'm like, ain't happening, Captain. I've got to get back in. So here I am, 60 years old, and I can watch my body reverse. And I can have people say to me, wow, gosh, the holidays must have been good for you because you are looking great. My hair's still growing, my nails still grow. Well, I know what works for my body. I can look inside my DNA. I can say, what am I doing versus what have I gotten lazy about? What do I need to up my game on? And that was my big part of early 2024 was, okay, what am I unhappy with in my health and in my journey? What do I need to reprioritize? And I was able to let go of a few things that had been really occupying my time and really dig into taking care of self. Taking care of self is not selfish. In fact, it's really critical because if you're not healthy, you can't serve others. And my purpose is to serve others, whether it's my parents, whether it's my children, whether it's my community. So I had to up my game because I refused to not be doing what I'm preaching. I do walk my walk and I do talk my talk. And if I'm willing to ask you to do something, take desiccated liver or something, I'll do it right along with you. If my blood work doesn't show that it's doing good and it means that I need to make a shift, I'll do it along with you. So I'm definitely a lock my arms with you and show you what's working, what's not, and help you dig through.
And this is the sort of the paradigm of functional medicine. And then it reminds me of allopathic medicine and your cardiologist and your ophthalmologist, etc. I can't. People may not know this because they're not in our sort of office seeing what's going on, but I can't tell you how many of our patients are doctors, right?
Mine
How many
too.
of the people, yeah, how many people that come in saying, I'm stuck, it's not working, I need help, they are trained, graduated, practicing clinicians because they've, after getting trained and starting to practice what they practice, realize that they can't answer the question as to why this thing happened.
Yeah.
They know what it's called, they know what to prescribe, they know what to monitor to keep it at some level of maintenance, but they don't know why it happened and therefore how to target, how to get rid of it. And we are seeing this growing movement of allopathic medical doctors literally shutting their practices down to open up functional medicine practices, taking that risk because they're so jaded by what they've been doing. And they see that true wellness is possible. People like you doing things that actually heal, and like, well, why wasn't I taught this? Right? Because that's not the business you're in, right? It's a very different business. So I just bring this up because, I mean, from what you mentioned, I just think people need to hear that the clinicians themselves are seeking this out because it's not available in that system. Sometimes, yes, sometimes you'll find great practitioners who, on their own time, learn, research, study, have an open mind, do not have an insecurity issue. They do what they know they need to do, but there's additional advice from their own heart and time based on what they've learned. But for the most part, that's not true. And anyone listening probably already knows that. So this is the path to true health, right? This is the path, which is why did it happen? Not what is it called? And people like yourself, myself, are living and walking proof that the things that we've been named as having no longer have, right? But the key thing you said is that is today, go back to your old habits and you'll have it again.
And you made two key points. One is that Western medicine only knows what they know. Western medicine is truly sick care. And if I get in a car accident and my arm gets chopped off, I definitely want a Western medicine hospital. I do not want a nutritionist. I definitely but I have so many nurses and doctors and PAs and that say, how do you know this stuff? And I don't know that you even know. I started in hospital pharmacy, then I went to retail pharmacy, then I worked for pharmaceutical manufacturers for 10 years.
Mm.
And I got to see manufacturing, marketing. I did clinical research. It was being in the belly of the beast, and it was all about the bottom line. And now seeing that Western medicine, which wasn't even back then, but it is now so pharma driven and so pharma funded that they want to keep you sick and on a medicine because that's how they make their money. They don't make money by you getting well, using something for a week and then getting off. It's the month after month after month after month maintenance. Now, if you just want to be maintained, great. But do you want to pay into all of that, or do you want to use the same dollars and actually heal? And when I talk to these doctors and nurses, they're like, "But I don't understand how to get beneath it." And I'll say, well, it's all biochemistry. Really, what I am, besides the functional genomic practitioner, is I'm a biochemist. How does a cycle work? So, for example, acid reflux. First thing is, most people don't realize you've got a diaphragm and the stomach pushes up through it. And there's a valve called the cardiac valve that doesn't shut. Well, you can pull it down yourself, or you can have a chiropractor pull it down, if you want to do that. And when that valve will shut, that's the first part of getting rid of it. The second thing is you have got to eat foods that don't produce excess acid, i.e. Cokes, i.e. sugar, i.e. acidic type foods. Now, lemon disassociates, and so it becomes alkaline, but like tomatoes bother a lot of people. But they'll take a proton pump inhibitor to shut their acid down. And I say, this is a 6-week medicine. You have to have acid in your stomach because that's how you get rid of all the parasites and the bugs that you've taken in on the food you've taken. You also need it to be able to absorb your minerals. You also need it to break your food down. Otherwise, you have undigested food that's rotting and you wonder why you have pain and gas and methane and everything stinks. And yet some of these proton pump inhibitors, people are on for a year or 2 or 6 because they say, no, I don't have any more acid reflux, and so I'm just going to stay on it. And the doctor goes, yeah, that's fine. If you're feeling good, just stay on it. They also don't realize apprazolam or pantoprazole or any of those then interfere with the cytochrome P450 and the other systems, and they start whacking out your other mechanisms or the way you process your food or the way they're processing, other medicines you're on. And so all these little islands that Western medicine has, cardiology, oncology, gastroenterology, they're not islands. It's like one of those skeleton watches where all the cogs work together. And we have to keep them all like this, because if you try to think of them each separately, then there's something that's not going to work, and if you throw a cog and it all stops working. So what we want to do is work with that biochemistry so that all of you is working and all of you can get back and get chug, 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 just like the little engine that could. You'll get back slowly.
Yeah.
Get back.
It's really incredible because like now somebody listening is like, whoa, that sounds complicated because taking a pill is easy. But this is like, how are you going to figure it's actually when someone has the knowledge that you have, right? That's really the key is under the understanding. It's not complicated. Biochemistry and biology is already understood. We know it all, right?
Right.
This is not undiscovered, right? What you've done is taken pieces, put them together, and action them. And you have a different approach on how to treat the body, which is at the biochemical and even let's call it biophysical level, because it's not even you're not adding medication and altering chemicals. You're altering, your genetic expression, biological function, removal of things that affect biological function. And so what sounds like how is this possible is much easier than it seems if you understand it, but there just
Yeah.
aren't enough people that understand it. And to me, it's actually more difficult to try and manage it with drugs because you're trying to use a chemical to adjust something physical, and all you're doing is managing other chemicals. And those chemicals don't speak to whether you're healthy or not. They're just speaking to what degree is your body suffering and fighting back, right? Suppressing the tail end of the problem as opposed to the problem itself. Uh, seems
Here, I've got one
backwards to
for
me.
you. You've
Yeah,
heard of something called a side effect?
right,
There is no such thing as a side effect. Do you know that?
right.
They're
So what is
all
it?
direct effects. It is
Right,
only the direct effect that's not being marketed.
right.
The effect they had marketed for is
Yeah,
what they want you to pay for and what they want. All these other are direct effects. They're just
yeah,
not marketed for those. And so they say, oh,
yeah,
those are just on the side. That's not true.
yeah,
And there's
yeah,
many drugs that are repurposed because the side effect, which was more of a direct effect, became more popular. So do you know that Viagra was a blood pressure medicine? But
right.
everybody had such good results. It's now marketed and sold for the
Yeah,
side effect.
yeah. Sometimes side effects work out well.
Sometimes they're great.
Yeah,
Oftentimes they're not.
yeah. Wow. So, this is where I would encourage people. to connect with you because if you're listening in, you've heard that something that seems out of reach. Um, when somebody specializes and understands it, it's very much in reach, right? And Dr. Stephanie's done it over and over and over and again, and now she's added functional genomics to her bag of tools. You know, her toolkit is expanded, and so everything gets personalized, and which means you just get there faster. Um, so I would urge people to reach out, connect, because there's no need to be walking around suffering from the chronic condition. If it was developed and caused, you should be able to reverse or prevent. If you see diabetes, cancer, heart disease in your family's genetics, it is not, right? There's some innate hardware or biological failure in their genetics, and then the choices you make manifest the disease. So let's dig into that and let's figure out what it is, because it shouldn't be, this isn't my future. It should be, this is what I need to avoid in my future, right? My parents were the canary in the coal mine who got exposed to the wrong thing and showed me what possibly could happen when you make the wrong choices. I'm going to make the right choices now, and I'm not going to have that same future. So with that, I'd like to thank you because this is awesome. You know, especially you telling us your story and exposing all of what you went through, but incredible because the work you do and the ability to truly understand, target the right thing, reverse and give someone their health back. I mean, what better role can you have on this planet?
Life is
So
good. And
thank you.
I want to thank you for your journey and for pushing through and say there has to be a better way. And, I did mine through supplementation lifestyle, but you just skyrocketed us with the people that you partnered with to really lift that curtain, kind of like Wizard of Oz, pull the curtain back and see what's behind. So it just
Yeah.
makes my job that much easier. So I can't thank you enough for your advocacy, for your passion, for your commitment to our community so that each and every one can take that step forward, at the rate they're ready for, and providing so much content so that they know it's possible and they don't have to feel lost anymore.
Thank you. Yeah. Not going to stop. Going to keep educating as much as I can. So
Yeah.
thank you everybody for joining us. You know where to reach Dr. Stephanie through the DNA company if you'd like. And whatever you need, even if just to understand a disease better, or you know reach out. We're here to help, and even as a minimum just to educate and drive the direction a little bit for you. But thank you again for joining. Awesome conversation.
Thank you. God bless you all.